Hey everybody, ronarray here, and I played Monk a lot. Previously, I did many Monk builds too, and right now it's finally time to update the most popular Monk build that I did, the Nuke Wave. Now Nuke Wave can be even stronger. With all the changes made in 0.2, a lot of things had to change in the build as well. The new Nuke Wave is very tanky, with up to 10k EF and maintaining around 50 to 60% evasion. Chaos Immune gets tons of recovery, both from Flask and from Energy Shield Recharge, making it much easier to play compared to other CI builds, and it can even one-shot tier 4 bosses now too. The build utilizes comfortable Nuke Wave clear. You practically use only one button in maps, combined with amazing damage of Flicker Strike for a single target. It can do tier 4 bosses with no issues at all, and can clear tier 4 Simulacrums or very juiced maps too. In this guide, I will show a set of improvements that can bring my Monk build to a truly new level of power, and also will showcase the changes, how you can be more tanky, how you can deal more damage, and what you should change in your build when you're fighting against different threats. Let's go forward, and I will explain all the mechanics that we can use to make it really strong. So why this iteration of the build is so great? First off, we can reach up to 100% critical hit chance without utilizing critical weakness or any other mechanics that will require like a weapon swap, for example. That way we can deal significantly more damage. My critical hit chance for my main skill, which is Storm Wave, is like 91%, and for Flicker Strike is 97.5%. So it's always going to do a critical hit, which is absolutely amazing, especially since my critical damage bonus is 855% for Flicker Strike, which leads to a tremendous damage. On top of it, we can also have an Energy Shield Recharge, which is very comfortable. When delay is only 2 seconds, every 2 seconds we are going to receive 1,500 Energy Shield regeneration. So if monsters not hitting you at least for a little, you're constantly going to recover back, which feels absolutely amazing compared to other CI builds, which mostly focusing on just clicking the flask. And you can also click the flask too, so flask is going to recover your energy shield when you will need to survive. All of that together with a huge energy shield by itself, we can reach like 9k in basic setup, and if you will go with tankier version, it will be like around 11k energy shield, without mirror tier items or anything like that. On top of it, we can also utilize different mechanics to clear the maps more comfortably and generate very big amount of damage. On top of everything else, we can also have a convalescence bonus, which when they are clicking the button, going to immediately give us energy shield recharge, which can be stopped. It could save your character in many bad situations. And most of the time you don't even need to click a lot of buttons. You're going to receive a pretty decent clear from a combination of Herald of Ash and Herald of Thunder, together with Voltaic Mark, which is going to just help us hit more enemies, because cast on critical here is going to proc very consistently. And we also will be able to utilize charge stuff at all times, generating as many charges as possible, even when we are running maps. So let's talk about the skills next. So when we are talking about the gems, first off, let's start with Unbound Avatar. Unbound Avatar is helping pretty nice against bosses when you can stack it, such as Zashed, and other situations when you just need to deal more damage, such as Simulacrum, for example. I'm usually clicking it occasionally, but it's not really too important, it's more like a nice bonus for damage right now. The only support that we can properly use for it, it's like Cold Mastery support right here. Storm Wave, our main skill, and Storm Wave is literally going to be our main skill going forward, because we are clearing with it. We are just hitting everything with Storm Wave, we are generating charges with it, and if it's not a boss, using the Storm Wave is probably the best idea. As a support, I'm using Lightning Infusion together with Martial Tempo, Upheaval, Primal Armament and Pinpoint Critical. Upheaval here because it's providing a lot of AoE, and you can also shotgun one target when you're hitting it with all 3 waves. And Pinpoint Critical is here to just make our crit chance as high as possible. I currently have about 91% of critical hit chance at Storm Wave, and I really feel like it's enough. most of the time, but if you can get it closer to 100, it will be good. I think it's mostly limitations coming from my weapon. And here is our bossing skill, which is Flicker Strike. So we are going to use Flicker only for bosses. That way we are going to save ourselves from uncomfortable situations that Flicker can put us into, when it's teleporting us to the monsters, when it's just feeling strange, and stuff like that. So generally Flicker right here is used only for bosses and dedicated only for them too. So as supports I'm using Perpetual Charge, because that way we can flicker a little longer into the boss. I'm using Overextend because critical damage bonus is very important. Together with Ambrosia, and Ambrosia here is going to provide crazy amount of damage to you if you have a pretty decent mana flask. I recommend mana flask with around 120 or higher charges, and that way Ambrosia is going to give you approximately like 70% of extra damage as lightning, which is absolutely insane, making it one of the best options for Flicker. They're also using Inevitable Critical together with Exile. That way we will have a cooldown at Flicker Strike, but our critical hit chance is going to be very high. Together, Inevitable Critical and Exile is going to give me 98% of critical hit chance. And we don't really need to swap gems that way. We could use Pinpoint Critical, but it's going to make our critical damage bonus less, which is not good. And we also will need to swap our gems. I want not to swap the gems, that's why I'm running Inevitable together with Exile. Make sure that your critical hit chance for Flicker Strike at least 90%, but perfectly as close to 100 as possible, because that way you will always crit the boss. If you're not critting the boss, you will deal no damage, so keep that in mind. And critical damage bonus is also huge, since for Storm Wave we're running like a pinpoint, it's kinda lower, it's around 400. For Flicker it should be at least 700%, but going 800 or 900 is going to feel even better. And we're also using Charge Staff together with Calling Strike, Persistence and Conduction. Another cool thing that we can use, there is a support called Overcharge, and when you're fighting bosses I recommend to add Overcharge to Charge Staff. It's going to raise your shock amount significantly, and you're going to deal at least 10% of additional damage to the boss, so it's feeling pretty nice. I'm usually just swapping it up here to Quarterstaff Strike and adding it back for bosses. Most of the time it's not even that necessary, but it can provide a pretty decent bonus. And Conduction together with Calling Strike is pretty important for Charge Staff, because that way we are going to deal more damage. Another interesting thing, if you have a capped crit already and your weapon has a lot of crit chance, you can swap Inevitable or Exile to Close Combat. That way you're going to deal more damage. Moving forward, I'm playing Custom Critical right here. There's a few reasons for it. First off, I'm using Custom Critical to trigger Voltaic Mark. Voltaic Mark helping with clear, it's not really providing that big of a bonus, but it's definitely worth it. I recommend to run it around level 15 with quality. And Profane Ritual together with Overabundance, Impetus and Inspiration here is a pretty nice setup for Custom Critical. Custom Critical itself is level 14, and don't forget the quality, because that way reservation is going to be 90, not 100. Profane Ritual is going to generate charges that we are going to use in maps when we are just using charge stuff. It's not really important for anything else, but it will make our uptime for charge stuff very consistent, and Voltaic Mark is going to help this clear. Infernal Cry is here only for bosses, so before you're bossing, like before you're hitting the boss with your Flicker Strike, you will need to click your Infernal Cry twice. So make sure it's allocated to the second weapon slot, and you have Second Wind, Enraged War Cry, Raging Cry and Premeditation for it. That way you're clicking it twice, generating rage, and receiving a pretty big bonus to your damage. It can provide up to 140% of additional damage as fire, and going to improve our damage for Flicker significantly. So don't forget Infernal Cry when you're hitting bosses. I'm running Herald together with Magnified Effect and Fire Mastery. Nothing special about it, but Herald itself is around level 4, because that way we can avoid running too much STR. Herald of Thunder here to get even more damage for clearing. I'm running it with Long Shot, Innervate, Lightning Mastery and Immolate. Immolate is barely working right here, so it's not really important, and I will just focus on the rest of the things. And I'm running Heart of Thunder level 15, there's not a lot of point to go higher. Next skill is Profane Ritual. Profane Ritual and Sacrifice here is pretty important. Make sure that your Profane Ritual is set to a second weapon set, and Sacrifice is set to a second weapon set as well. Because that way, when you're swapping your set, you will be able to cast your Profane Ritual on your skeletons, generating power charges for yourself. That way, you can generate charges before the boss to use your charge stuff or to hit the boss too. So, for that, you will need to utilize Rattling Scepter, which will give you a level of Skeletal Warrior minions. And when you will go to the second set, you can off custom critical, for example, for the second, and have it up only for first set, and allocate as many skeletons as possible, as usually around 9 skeletons for me, for your spirit. That way you will be able to constantly cast Profane on them. Just make sure that you have Infernal Cry at the second weapon set, Profane Ritual at the second weapon set, and Sacrifice at the second weapon set. And the last skill gem is pretty interesting. We currently don't have more space, but if you will get the ring with grants 1 additional skill slot, you will have +1 additional skill slot and you will be able to add Convalescence to your build. I heavily recommend Convalescence, because it's going to boost your survivability significantly. For Convalescence, they're going to run Ingenuity, Clarity, Herbalism and Precision. If you're not going to run Convalescence and would like to replace the ring, I recommend to move Clarity, Herbalism and Precision to your Herald of Ash. That way they're always, those buffs are always going to be up. And Convalescence itself should be set to a first weapon set, and you're clicking it when you need to regenerate your energy shield. It's going to give you a buff, and you will be able to recharge energy shield even if enemies are hitting you. But buff duration is only 4 seconds. It's very good for survivability, and I heavily recommend to get the ring with grant additional skill slot and get Convalescence for yourself. However, if you're not a big fan of Convalescence and you don't like enemies swarming you, you can run Wind Dancer instead of Convalescence. That way, just replace the supports with Pin, Maim and Energy Barrier. And Herbalism, Clarity and Precision should just go to Herald of Ash. That's pretty much it for the skills. The main idea here comes from just clicking Storm Wave consistently, and for bosses you should just swap weapons like that. You can cast Profane Ritual on your skeletons. When you're full power charges, you should click your charge stuff, then swap back, get all the charges again, go to the boss, click Infernal Cry, click Infernal Cry twice, activate the avatar if you have it, and flicker. That's how your bossing and rotation should be pretty simple. Another pretty important thing right here, make sure that you don't have overcharge in your charge stuff while mapping, because it's going to ruin your survivability, so it's up there only for boosting. And now let's talk about the items. So first off, I'm utilizing Chevron Satchel Fine Belt. That's literally the main idea, how we can have shield recovery and shield recharge together with regenerating energy shield from flasks. I'm heavily recommending to using Allroth Resolve together with that belt, because it's going to be very comfortable. And you can get it with Corruption for resistances, it's pretty nice. Some intelligence also coming in handy, and it will help your flask to generate charges. So I feel like Chevron Satchel right now is one of the best options for the belt. Unfortunately, Ingenuity not really providing a lot of damage. At best it's about 10% and its worth is 5% approximately. I don't really feel that 5% worth to lose so big quality of life, because if you're using Chevron Satchel right here, we can ignore or eternal use, not to take it at all, stay 1 point, and that way we will keep the recharge. I think it's a very great idea to use it for Chevron Satchel, and I definitely recommend that belt to everybody. For the rest of the items, everything is very basic. For the second weapon set, make sure you're running a Scepter together with Skeletal Warrior Minion and Red Blade Banner. Red Blade Banner is just amazing because it gives you enemies in your presence count as having double power, and against the bosses it will be much easier to get power from your Infernal Cry. I also recommend to add Soul Core of Xantippe inside. It will give you convert 20% of required means to intelligence. That way it will be much easier to just manage your STR. And Red Blade banner should just be in the second set for the skill that stands there. As the weapon, I recommend to aim for +6, +7 level 4 melee skills, together with as high critical damage bonus as you can. And you will need critical hit chance at least 11% to make sure your crit chance is kept. But if you can get like 12 or 14, it will feel even better, so I definitely recommend that. The rest of the kit on the weapon, you just aim for as high DPS as possible. And at the helmet, I recommend to get very high energy shield because you're going to receive most of your evasion from it. And right now, if you can get crit hit chance here like at least 20% together with resistances, is going to be just perfect. For the body armor, you will need at least 1000 energy shield approximately to get all your auras up. At the gloves, get like plus level 4 melee skills together with some accuracy and lightning damage. And make sure you're using right here like Boar Talisman that will give you 1 rage on melee hit. For the boots, I recommend just movement speed. You don't really need to focus on too high, like 25, 30 and 35 all working, and get as much energy shield and as much resistances as possible. For the amulet, I recommend to get +3 levels of all melee skills together with some critical hit chance and as much energy shield as possible because it's going to be very comfortable for you. And as an anointment, I recommend Subterfuge Mask because it's going to give us all our evasion, so it's very mandatory right here. If you can get some mana regeneration, it's probably going to feel better too. And at the rings, getting like some resistances together with lightning damage and mana would be as good as you can get right here. For the second ring, I'm pretty much running like gain 1 additional skill slot, as I already mentioned, and additional lightning damage too. So that's the whole set. For your flask here, aim to just maximum amount of charges for Ambrosia, and Allrounder Resolve in my opinion is probably the best option right now for your life flask. As the charms, I recommend the charm against the stuns, because that way we will be protected, and I recommend the charm against the freezing, because that way we will not be frozen. And another cool thing that for bosses, I heavily recommend to swap in the Power Threads hunting shoes. That way you can just replace your boots with Power Threads, and you will have significantly more damage. You will have +1 maximum power charge and 14% of critical damage bonus per power charge. That way, it's going to be very comfortable when you're going to cast your Flicker, because your critical damage bonus is going to be very high. I recommend to swap it in for all pinnacle bosses, but only pinnacles. The rest of the bosses you can just kill with normal boots, but if you're fighting like Arbiter Zasht or anything like that, I heavily recommend Power Threads. So, talking about the rest of the setup, there's a few things that I wanted to explain. Let me showcase the tree right now. The tree itself is very simple. At the Ascendancy, we're just going for Spirit, we're going for Thunder my enemies because our critical hit chance is almost 100%. I'm taking I'm the Thunder together with Unbound Avatar. If you're not that big fan of Avatar, you can replace it and get I'm the Blizzard instead, but I feel like Avatar could be a very nice boost against some particular bosses where you can utilize that. And the rest of the kit is very simple. We're just going here, we're taking all energy shield, we're taking all possible critical hit chance by the way, so like moment of truth here, we're taking critical exploit, deadly force, and make sure you're going through down there, together with 4 jugular, true strike, like careful assassin too, and here we're taking all possible crit bonuses too. I recommend to use as a jewel against the darkness with at least damage as extra lightning, but if you can get something on top of it like damage as extra fire, you'll deal even more damage. But even gain damage as extra lightning is pretty much enough in the most cases. Here we're taking all the crit too, going to the left, and we're taking one more subfile jewel here. Going for the jewel is pretty important because we can stack more maximum energy shield that way, together with critical hit chance, chance to shock, and even faster start of energy shield recharge. Coming Calamity is also pretty amazing because it's increasing both our fire damage and our lightning damage, which is stacking very good with the rest of our kit because we are using like Herald of Ash and Herald of Thunder. Our fire damage comes from Infernal Cry for the boss, and lightning is pretty much what we're usually doing. I also recommend to run at least 2 more jewels with recover maximum mana on kill. I think it's pretty important because our mana situation is not that amazing. So right here I have 1 jewel like that, and right here I have like a 2nd jewel like that. That gives us 4% of maximum mana on kill, and it's helping a lot with our mana situation. However, if you feel like your mana is feeling pretty bad because our Storm Wave costs almost 200 mana, I recommend to get conservative casting right here. You can spend 3 points and take them from anything that you currently don't need, like you can drop some energy shield, you can drop Wild Storm for less damage, and just invest those points into reduced mana cost and conservative casting. It could be a pretty decent option too. We're also taking Killer Instinct because we're always on the full life, and up here we're taking Chaos Inoculation. Another important question is the stun and element threshold. Generally, I'm using only 1 point for threshold right here, and I'm also taking Damping and Shield. Please keep in mind that Damping and Shield together with that 1 point is absolutely mandatory, otherwise you're going to get stunned consistently. If you have both of those and you're still getting stunned too often, you can drop a few points like Rapid Recharge for example, and you can take like Abasement and Shimmering Mirage. It could be a very good idea to protect yourself. But when I have about 9k energy shield, I don't really get stunned that often, just with stun and element threshold here and damping and shield right here. And we're taking recharge bonuses, such as a rapid recharge, together with like bonuses for faster start, to maintain our recharge. My recharge delay is only 2 seconds and recharge per second is 1600. It's feeling absolutely amazing and I heavily recommend it because it's going to make your sustain very good. I'm currently level 96, but if I would have more points, I would probably invest into small nodes right here with maximum energy shield and evasion rating. And another interesting question is how to become more tanky, especially for challenges such as Simulacrum. You can complete them with your basic setup, but there's a few recommendations that I usually would say it will be good to follow. So generally, if you're playing Simulacrum or any challenge that you feel like you really need to be tanky about, there's a few things that I usually recommend. So first off, if you're not going to play bosses, dropping Infernal Cry is a pretty good idea. You can just get it out and get like Windancer in instead. It's going to improve your survivability significantly if you're not running pinnacle bosses. I obviously don't like to replay the gems, but if I'm running tier 4 Simulacrum, I think it's just making my life significantly easier. After that, you can drop Precision completely, and after Precision, you can drop any other small things that you like. So, for example, you can drop Herbalism or Clarity. My mana feeling kinda alright, so I'm usually dropping Clarity, and that way you can activate the Windancer. Or there is a second option. You can keep both of them in, and instead you can replace Custom Critical too. Custom Critical is not going to help you significantly in the Simulacrum, so if you will drop Custom Critical, you will be able to activate Windancer easily, and you can also get another cool things for your setup, which is Blasphemy. So just running basic Blasphemy without Precision is probably the best idea for Simulacrum. So if you're running Simu, you can run like Blasphemy, Temporal Chains, Heightened Curse, Ritualistic Curse and Encumbrance, together with Windancer, Pin, Maim and Energy Barrier. And Custom Critical and an Infernal Cry will just stay for your future when you're running like maps or tier 4 pinnacles. That swap should help you significantly in Simulacrum if you want to run Simus. I can also recommend to swap at least a few things that you're not going to utilize in Simu anyway, such as like power charges for example. You can replace a few points here and just take even more ES for yourself. So that way you can just take it here and here. You can easily reach up to 10k energy shield and like 60% evasion in that tanky version and run like basic Simu with it. You can even play maps with it. I honestly don't recommend to run it for like endgame bosses because it will be harder to one-shot them, and without Infernal Cry it will be hard to deal damage too, but consider such an option as well because you can reach huge energy shield and huge evasion that way. And when you will be back to bossing or your basic setup, I usually just recommend to take it back and invert those points back as well. That way your simuls are going to be pretty smooth, and your bosses are going to be pretty smooth too. You don't really need to replace any items, because items are working just fine. Just make sure when you're running simulacrums that between the stages you're summoning your skeletons, you're eating them with Profane Ritual, and you're clicking charge stuff and as well. However, I'm not really running simulacrums that often, and most of the time I'm just using basic custom critical Infernal Cry setup and Nike and Energy Shield without any additions, but keep those options in mind because it could be very helpful for you. And that's pretty much it. I think with such setup, Nuke Wave is in a very good position, because you have a very decent clear with like double Heralds right here, you have a pretty decent AoE just from Nuke Wave itself, you have a huge damage from bonuses from charge stuff, and 100% critical, together with decent boosting damage with Flicker. All of that on top of a very high energy shield, decent evasion, and energy shield recharge, which feels absolutely amazing. Try it out and I hope you will love it. Thank you very much for watching, and I really hope they will not do anything to that build in the next league. But if they will change something, I'm going to keep that updated. So thank you very much for watching as usual, and see you next time. ronarray out.